Hello. Look at this. Hello, Union Chapel. How you doing? Hello. This is very exciting for me. I grew up all of 2 roads over. I grew up on a road called Liverpool Road, which is just over there. So is there anybody from Islington in here this evening? Oi, oi. We got the Islington crowd. Now, this man over here, we're definitely going to unpack all of the amazing things that he's written about and that I'm sure you've heard him say in various interviews. But before we get to that, what I really want to do is kind of get a measure of who's in the room. Now, Simon, I believe it's 1984, right?
Ish.
1984-ish, which depresses me because I was born in 1983. But 1984 apparently is the beginning marker as to when millennials were born. So, by show of applause, the giveaway is the people using their phones. There's actually people who've got their phones up already. By show of applause, could you please make it known if you were born 1984 or after? Go for it. There are a lot of millennials in the room. Did somebody actually boo the millennials? I'm sure I heard somebody boo in the back. Now, the last time I was on this stage, we were talking about this backstage, Simon. The last time I was on this stage, I was about 9 years old. I had a terrible haircut, and I was wearing trousers that were far too short for me, singing as part of a choir with my school. I kind of have trousers that are too short for me on now. That hasn't changed. But it is amazing to be back here. And you were actually born in London.
I was born in Wimbledon.
What does it feel like to be back?
It's always nice to come back. I mean, there's a part of me that's still very English. And I have family here still, cousins and aunts and uncles and my grandmother. So yeah, it's always nice to come back.
And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's noticed this. His accent has become that bit more English since he's been back. Can you hear that? Yeah. Do you feel that shift whenever you come back to the UK? Do you sort of slide back into your Britishness?
I don't do it on purpose, and I know it happens, and I can hear my accent. I can actually hear myself sound American when I'm in English, when I'm in England, and it's automatic. It's weird.
All right. Well, the plan for today is to have a chat. This is a very strange way to have a chat. We've got crucifixes all around us and our voices are echoing. But the plan is to have a conversation. Now, if this weren't that sort of thing, I would have done a big old intro and sort of spoke about some of this man's accolades. But I think it's worthwhile kind of going through it because Simon has had the 3rd most viewed TED Talk of all time, which is kind of impressive. And he's also a 2-time best-selling author. So can we please make some noise for the fantastic Simon? Thank you. Thank you.
But in fairness, you've done more stuff.
I don't know about that.
I mean, writer, director, DJ.
Yeah.
What else is on the list? Actor.
Lots of stuff.
Like you got one of everything.
Yeah, there's lots of weird stuff thrown in, including a Jamaican mouse. But that's a whole other conversation altogether. A crime-solving Jamaican mouse.
So when we do audience Q&A, somebody please ask about the Jamaican crime-solving mouse.
Yeah, but anyway, we're here to talk about you and here to talk about what it is that you're doing now with this new book. But also, I think something that we would all like to get into is a little bit about your past and your history, because I'm fascinated by your take on leadership and also the way in which you attack it and how many people you've actually taught to look at leadership in a new way. So can you sort of unpack your take on leadership?
I think we have a gross misunderstanding very often of what leadership is. We confuse rank and authority with leadership. Right. And my education in leadership, I didn't set out to understand it. I certainly don't consider myself an expert on the subject, but I do consider myself a student of the subject. And I'm constantly learning, and I've had the great opportunity to spend time with and meet people who truly are great leaders. And they all see themselves in service. The irony is the best leaders are actually the best followers. They follow a cause bigger than themselves, and they see themselves in service to that cause and to those people who join them on whatever crusade they're on. It's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. It has nothing to do with rank or authority. And I think we very often confuse a position of leadership with being a leader. And so everybody has the capacity to be a leader, and anybody can be a leader regardless of their rank or position. And not everyone who's in a position of authority is a leader, despite what we call them.
Did you ever work with anybody who was in a position of authority but wasn't actually a leader to you, which brought you to this?
Oh, yeah, many times. My first boss my first job out of school, she had this philosophy that if she whipped us harder, that would be better for us. And
sounds like my dad.
Yeah, didn't work because we hated her and we laughed at her and we ignored her. And the funny thing is we were a team of 6, and what it did do is it made us a very, very tight team because misery loves company. And so what I did learn was the camaraderie that can form. It was actually a team of 5 because there was one girl who sort of was a brown noser and she was not in our, she wasn't in our group.
Right.
But we took care of each other.
Yes.
And this is where I started to learn way back then just the value of taking care of each other, especially when you have a toxic boss, which we had.
Okay. I should probably remind you guys that we're actually on Facebook. We're streaming on Facebook Live at the moment. So hello to everyone watching on Facebook, wherever you are. It's so dark. I don't know where the cameras are, so I'm probably not even looking down the lens right now. But we have had a Facebook question.
Which I don't know what it is.
No, you don't. It's been sent and it's a really long, I mean, come on, seriously? It's a really long question, so bear with me on this. And this question actually covers the why, which is something that you covered quite extensively in the first book. So this was actually submitted by Dom Stone. Bear with me, this is going to take a while. Dom asks, you once said that your ultimate goal was world peace. Considering you're a big advocate of the law of diffusion, of innovation in the application of your work, cheers Dom, how far along the curve do you feel you are with your why and its adoption around the world? Nice, short, simple one.
Yeah. So let me unpack that.
Might need to.
There's like 3 things that I'll try and explain a little bit there. So yes, the ultimate goal is world peace, this unachievable goal that I'll never see in my lifetime. So the question, it begs the question, why do I write business books? Right. I joke that I write philosophy books that are cleverly disguised as business books.
I was going to say, are they business books?
Yeah, ish. They're sold in the business section. But I actually am very interested in business and companies because that's where the people are. Right. You know, during the Great Depression in the United States, they had 25% unemployment. What I hear is that 75% still have a job. In the recession in 2008, unemployment went up to 10%. What I hear is that 90% still have a job. In other words, if you want to get to the people, get them at work. Because it's a lot more efficient than going door to door to door to try and get people as individuals. But if I get them at companies, I can get thousands very quickly, millions very efficiently. And if people love coming to work and they take care of each other and they practice trust and cooperation, they're happier people, they live longer, they're healthier, they go home happier, they treat their spouses better, they treat their kids better, they have better marriages, they come back to work happy the next day, they treat each other better, it's world peace, you get the idea. But the way you achieve those kinds of things, the way you make a tipping point, as Dom points out, is something called the law of diffusion of innovations. Every population on the planet, regardless of its size, including this room, sifts across the standard deviation, the old bell curve. The first 2.5% of our population are early adopters. The next 13.5% of our population are our innovators. 34% early majority, next 34% late majority, last 16% laggards. I won't go through the whole thing, but net, to change anybody's ideas, to create a social movement, you actually don't aim at the majority. They're cynical, they're risk averse. You look for the early adopters, you look for the left side of the curve, who are the ones who are going to go, all right, I don't think it's perfect, but I'm willing to try it. You know, these are the people who are willing, they have a higher risk tolerance, they're willing to suffer a sacrifice, spend more time, spend more money, to be a part of something that reflects their own beliefs. And so we've completely committed ourselves to talking to that audience first and foremost. For example, way back when, I remember a guy who was given my name who wanted to hire me, and I got on the phone with him, and he said, "Convince me why I should hire you." And this isn't at a time where I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, and sort of every dollar helped. And he says to me, "Convince me why I should hire you," and my answer was, "Don't." Because he told me he was not an early adopter by saying that. An early adopter would say to me, "I think you're onto something. I don't think it's perfect, but I really want to be a part of this." That's the language I would listen for. And what happens is those people tell their friends, and they're the ones that spread the message, hence the law of diffusion. So to answer Dom's question now, where do I think I am? It's way small. We talk about this at the office all the time. when anybody says, oh my God, we're doing so great, or this happened, somebody will say, it's tip of the iceberg. It's just the tip of the iceberg. We've been saying it for years. No matter what we accomplish, no matter how many books we sell or TED views, it's all tip of the iceberg. Yes, we've got more view of the iceberg, but this, I mean, you're trying to change the whole world. I'm trying to completely undo the way business is done, left over from the 80s and 90s. I mean, the way business is generally conducted today is old-fashioned and outdated, and it doesn't work, and it's not good for capitalism, and it's not good for us. The result is things like we're seeing in the world today. Marine Le Pen is a serious contender for president of France. Brexit, all of these things are the result of some of the policies left over from the 80s and 90s. I want that all gone. So it's going to take time.
Okay. We should probably get to it. I mean, we've got an audience full of millennials here, and obviously we want to get into this millennial question. So
I'll give shorter answers.
No. I like the long answers. Great. We've come to hear you speak. Let's get to that video. You did an interview, and a part of that interview was sort of chopped out and ended up going viral, and was viewed around 150 million times across different platforms, which is
something like that.
An absolutely insane number. And this idea of the millennial question was dissected and championed by some and broken down by others. Explain to me what happened from your point of view and why it happened the way it did.
So every single talk that I would give, every single meeting that I would have, literally 100%, someone would raise their hand and ask me the millennial question. Some manager, business owner, whoever it was, would express their frustration in leading millennials, that it wasn't, whatever they were doing wasn't working. And it was pervasive. Every single industry, military, government, politics, big business, small business, B2B, B2C, everything, everybody asked the question. Yeah. And so I fashioned an answer, talking to a lot of people about their struggle, but more importantly, talking to millennials and listening to them. I fashioned an answer, and this was the answer that I would give at all these talks. And I did an interview. He asked the question, I gave the answer, and as you said, somebody edited it out, put it on YouTube, somebody else took it off YouTube, put it on Facebook, and then it got weird. None of us expected it,
yeah.
And we found out when all of our phones started exploding because people started texting and calling, telling us that like 6 people had already sent them this video. So we started to tune in and watch the numbers, and it had 80 million views in 8 days.
That's incredible.
Which was insane.
Why do you think it exploded in the way it did?
I knew the answer was relevant because when I would give it on stage, those who were leading millennials light bulbs would start going off. Behaviors that they didn't understand or behaviors that they would accuse of laziness or entitlement all of a sudden made sense. But to me, more importantly, I met a ton of millennials who would come up to me afterwards and thank me. And some of them were brought to tears because they thought it was them. They thought they were broken. They thought there was something wrong with them. The struggle to form relationships, the struggle to form trust or deal with stress, they thought it was them. And they understood that they still have that struggle, that the problem doesn't go away, but they're not broken. It's largely because of how they grew up that impacted their view of the world. And so I'm really proud of the fact that the vast majority of the responses have been overwhelmingly positive. And I always double check. I mean, I'll give some highfalutin answer, and I'll always ask the millennials in the audience, am I off base? And they'll usually they give me a nod and say I'm doing okay. So it's not, my goal is not to talk down to anybody, but to rather help people understand sort of the lot that we've all been dealt.
Yeah. Well, for the people in the room that haven't actually seen that video, I'm sure
all the people without Facebook,
you all have seen it, but really this is just for me. Is it possible for you to sort of talk us through those 4 pillars that essentially break down what the issue is for millennials in 2017?
I'll do it. It's like a 15-minute thing, so I'll do it in like 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Basically, it's based on 4 observations.
Yeah.
Parenting, impatience, technology, and environment. So parenting. A disproportionately high number of millennials were subject to what others have described as a failed parenting strategy. Too many were raised being told that they could achieve anything they want in the world, which inherently sounds good, just because they want it. The hard work part was sort of left out. Just if you want it, you can have it, right? And lots of positive affirmation, because we want our kids to grow up, with great self-confidence, but excessive amounts of positive affirmation and not enough pointing out when things are broken. And even accountability started to suffer. So when you and I were kids and we got in trouble at school, our parents would say to us, "What have you done now?" And that changed to, "What's wrong with your teacher?" Right? Or "What's wrong with your school?" Not you. And so what ended up happening was a group of people grew up with a false truth about who they are and what they're capable of in the world. Then they graduate and they get their first job, and like this, they discover they're not special, they can't have whatever they want, their mum can't call and get them a promotion. And believe me, we've heard stories of parents calling and complaining because their kids didn't get jobs or didn't get a promotion. We've even heard stories of parents who filled out job applications for their kids. Like,
wow.
And these aren't like onesies and twosies either. But the point is they get into the real world and they find out that the real world does not match how they grew up, and what it does is it shatters their self-confidence. So a disproportionately high number of people, young people today, are growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Now, if you combine that with the ill effects of technology, it exaggerates that problem. There's a chemical inside our body called dopamine. Dopamine is released for very good reasons, and it's a very healthy thing. However, there are some things in our modern society that can hijack that dopamine reward system. So things like alcohol, smoking, and gambling all release dopamine. That's the reason those things feel good, the reason those things feel good to do. So we enjoy drinking, we enjoy gambling because of dopamine.
Right.
A little bit, it's fine. Drinking is fine. Too much drinking is dangerous. Gambling is fun. Too much gambling is dangerous. In other words, if it goes unbalanced, it can actually be very, very addictive. We know that our mobile phones and social media release dopamine. So that bing, that buzz, when your phone goes buzz and you get a text, feels good, right? If you're feeling a little bit lonely, feeling sorry for yourself, what do? We take out our phones and we text 10 friends, hi, 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 hi. And hopefully somebody writes you back and you feel good, right? We count the number of likes, it makes us feel good, the notifications feel good, all of that. It's all dopamine. It can be highly, highly addictive. If you compare the technology to alcoholism, we have age restrictions on alcohol, nicotine, and gambling. We have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones. And if you compare it to alcoholism, the data is pretty clear on that, which is kids who drink under the age of 15, 40% of them will become alcoholics. And if they wait till something like 19, I can't remember the exact numbers, but the numbers drop down till about 8% will become alcoholics. In other words, kids are particularly susceptible to dopamine addictions, and yet we're giving kids unfettered access to devices. And this was the first generation, millennials were the first generation that came of age during the millennium, the first generation to grow up with unfettered access to the internet, social media, and mobile phones. The reason that's significant is because, like an alcoholic, when you suffer any kind of stress as an adult, you don't turn to a person, you turn to a device. You turn to social media for feelings of self-worth and affirmation. The number of followers you have, the number of likes you get, literally affect your self-worth. It can be devastating when somebody unfriends you. It should mean nothing, but it can be so devastating. That's funny. And so for a young population that's already dealing with issues of trying to understand who they are and how they fit in the world, and it doesn't quite align with how they grew up and affects their self-confidence, now when they're suffering stress, they actually lack the coping mechanisms to deal with stress, and instead of turning to people, they're turning to devices. And that only exaggerates the feelings of insecurity or anxiety. Then you add impatience. It's a generation that has grown up with instant gratification all around them, right? Now, we all have it, but millennials grew up with it. So you want to buy something, you go on Amazon, shows up the next day. You want to watch a movie, don't check movie times, stream it whenever you want it. You can binge an entire TV season in a weekend, and you can go on a date just from swiping right, right? It's true. So you can have anything you want immediately.
Yeah.
The problem is job fulfillment and love and deep, meaningful relationships don't happen instantaneously. And too many people try to solve their problems, like, I hate my job, I've only been here 4 months. They want it to be fixed immediately. And they treat love or job fulfillment like it's a scavenger hunt. I hear it all the time. I want to find the perfect job. It's not something you find under a rock. Like, found it. Like, I want to find the woman of my dreams. I want to find the man of my dreams. It doesn't work that way. You find someone who could love you, and you work very, very hard every day to stay in love. You find a job with a good culture that shares your values, with people who you could trust and they could trust you, and you work very, very hard to maintain the sense of fulfillment in that career. And what happens is, because they're not finding it immediately, they either blame themselves or they blame the job and they quit. I know 27-year-olds who had 5, 6, 7 jobs already. Yeah. And I know if it's a bad job, you shouldn't stick around. I get it. But that's too many, you know? And that's too quick. Quitting after 3 or 4 months is too quick, unless it's a particularly abusive environment, which most of them aren't. And then finally is the work environment. Taking a group of people with lower self-esteem, who are lacking coping mechanisms and want all those problems to be fixed immediately, and we're dropping them in corporate environments where the standard way of doing business, as I said, are left over from the 80s and 90s. The concept of shareholder supremacy, which is putting the interests of an external constituency ahead of your employees, which is the same as a coach making decisions based of the wants of the fans over the needs of the players. Right. That's what's happening.
I'm an Arsenal fan.
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, a lot of people in the room will identify with my pain right now, but we won't get into that.
I know it's a football team. That's all I got. I'm a Mets fan. That's probably something akin. Yeah, it's pretty bad, right? Yeah. I completely lost
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Corporate environments, 1980s, right. So the concept of shareholder supremacy was a theory proposed in the late 1970s, popularized in the 80s and 90s. Okay. Now it's normal. Now we hear about, I have to put my shareholder first. We have to produce shareholder value. It's just a theory. I don't think a very successful one, right? The concept of using mass layoffs, mass redundancies to balance the books every year did not exist prior to the 1980s. It was popularized in the 80s and 90s. Now it's so normal when somebody announces a round of redundancies, we don't actually take notice. Almost every single one of us has a friend, if not ourselves, who've been laid off because, sorry, we missed our arbitrary projections. So now you have to go home and tell your family you can no longer provide for them. Just business, nothing personal, right? And these concepts, these ideas were popularized in a time, they were boom years, it was relative peace, a kinder, gentler Cold War, and those times do not exist. These are no longer boom years, we do not have relative peace, and the internet has completely changed the way business is done. In other words, what worked then cannot work now. And I think it's egregious that businesses choose to blame a population when they enter a workforce that does not actually view them as human beings, but views them rather as numbers on a spreadsheet. And I think that has to go away.
Mm-hmm. To the millennials in the room, does that speak to your experience at all by show of applause? One or two.
Not as many has applauded as who claimed they were millennials.
Yeah, well, but this is interesting
we'll
though,
get
because
to that later.
Off the back of that video going viral, there were some people who didn't agree with your point of view.
There were a couple.
There were some people who threw into the mix, graduates not being able to find employment in the way that they maybe might have done in decades past. And there were other things that were brought up that were challenging your theory. I mean, what do you say to the people that challenge your attitude on millennials?
I watched a lot of the videos and I read a lot of the criticisms because I don't think that I'm right and I don't think that I think I have a perspective. Right. So I'm always interested in refining my thinking, so I take in all the criticisms. But a lot of them weren't helpful, I'll be honest.
It's a nice way of putting it. I'm pretty sure you used different language at the time.
No, I'll be specific, and you'll see. So like from older generations, the most common thing I got from older generations was, I'm letting them off the hook, and they have to take accountability for themselves. Of course. Like, of course you have to take accountability for your own life, but they think companies shouldn't be responsible for fixing everything. I'm like, well, they're your employees, so how's it working out? Of course you have to take responsibility for fixing your corporate culture. Like, how can you not take responsibility? So I rejected all of those. You know, like accusing one for not taking accountability while not taking accountability yourself, I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
From some of the millennials, they said things to me like, how can I make generalizations about an entire generation? I can't simply make a generalization about an entire generation. We're not all the same. Of course. It's not everybody, but we can make generalizations about populations because populations come of age during the same world events. So if you came of age during World War II, odds are some of our grandparents are a little more miserly and frugal than us, okay? They want to get every drop of toothpaste out of the tube. That's not because they're broken or brain damaged, it's because they grew up during rations. Yeah. And it affected how they grew up and how they see the world. In other words, the major events when we come of age will have an impact on how we view the world as a population. And the same can be said for millennials, the first population to come of age in a time of internet ubiquity and cell phone ubiquity. So you can make generalizations. That's why things like psychology and sociology exist. Yeah. If you couldn't make generalizations, you couldn't have those social sciences. So that wasn't helpful. That was most of it.
Going back to the...
And I'm open to any other suggestions, genuinely.
Well, I'll tell you what, there will be an opportunity for you to give suggestions, but hopefully questions, as we'll slip into a Q&A in about another 10 or 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please get them ready. Work out how you're going to say them. There will be a microphone. And please, I mean, I've been in 1,000,001 audiences like this where people get the mic and they say they've got a question and it's actually a statement. Let's not do that. Let's make them actual questions as opposed to statements.
And you can ask Reggie questions too, by the way.
No, this is all about this guy. But yeah, if you do have questions, please make. We don't want statements to prove how smart you are.
Because I have questions for you.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
We'll get to it. I'll tell you what, I'll ask you a question and then you can find me. This suddenly made me very nervous. You don't have any family members still living in the UK, do you?
I do.
Oh, crap. Okay, shit.
Yeah.
This could get very intimate.
And they're very big fans of yours.
Oh, weird. Okay, cool. Moving on. You touched on the why a little bit earlier on. We won't go into it in too much depth, but you did touch on the why. I'm interested to sort of find out whether you believe millennials are capable or if they actually do try and find the why without being taught about it, obviously.
I think given the times they grew up in,
yeah.
I think millennials have also some fantastic advantages that older generations do not have. For one, this concept of purpose or cause is pervasive. They want to make an impact. They want to be a part of an organization that stands for something, and they are much more vocal when they're not given that, you know? And I think that's wonderful because older generations will have an awful job and suffer in silence, where millennials are the first to say, I'm out of here. This is not for me. And I think that's really, I think there's a huge advantage of that. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on companies that they should stand for something and have a sense of purpose or cause. And I think millennials are a large contributor to that pressure, which I think is great.
But do they know what the something is? That is the question.
Sometimes I think too many have the concept is too broad.
Right.
Like I want to make an impact. I mean that could mean anything. You know, I think the why is helpful to guide us in our decisions in our careers when there's some actual focus. Like saying I want to make an impact is like saying I want to go on holiday. Where? You want to go to a beach, you want to go on an adventure, you want to go skiing. Like you don't have to pick the country, but if you can shape it a little bit, like I love beaches, then it gives you a sense of where you could go. And a why is the same. You want to have some barriers that it gives you a sense of the decisions you would make or the places you could work or the kinds of relationships that will make you feel more like you belong than others. But I want to make an impact is just too broad. It's just too broad. I want to go on holiday. It's just too broad. But I love that they at least talk about it. They talk about it more than older generations.
3 books in on the on the precipice of your 4th. What would
precipice is a good word.
It is. What would you say your why is now, and has it changed?
My why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so together we can change our world.
You've said that before.
I say it all the time.
That was so smooth.
Yeah. And I have a crystal clear vision of the world I want to live in, and it's a vision of the world that does not yet exist.
Right.
I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning, inspired to go to work, feel safe when they're there, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. And I've committed absolutely every ounce of my being and my career to try and build that world and find others who want to build it with me. A why is fully formed by the time we're in about our late teens, and it does not change for the rest of our lives. It is the product of our upbringing. We are who we are, and the rest of our lives simply offer us opportunities to live in balance or out of balance with our why. So a why does not change no matter what happens to us. Tragedy doesn't produce a why, but it might produce an opportunity for you to realize your why, for example. And when you find that you're naturally loving something and you're naturally passionate for things, odds are your why is there. And when you're struggling, even if it's something similar you've done many times, then your why is not there. And so when you know what the why is, you can help direct where you can call it whatever you want, be passionate, be in the flow, have all cylinders firing more frequently. But it doesn't change, ever.
With the work that you've done on millennials, has your relationship with social media and cell phones changed for the better or for the worse, do you think?
I've suffered the addiction, and I've learned to manage it. I've learned, sometimes I fall back, but for the most part, I've learned to manage it really well. So I deleted Facebook entirely. I don't have it anymore. I don't use it.
But Facebook is absolutely fine to all the people watching on Facebook right now, streaming. We love you guys. We really love you guys. Especially this guy. He loves you too.
I have a bad...
Zuckerberg could be watching, dude. He'll take you out.
I have a bad habit of doing that.
Yeah.
I went to an innovation conference and I talked about the... I talked about the stupidity of the word innovation because it's lost its meaning, and I forgot where I was, and the word innovation was right above my head. Anyway.
So you were saying that you deleted a generic blue app.
Yeah. So, and I've now in the habit when I go out with friends for dinner, for example, I'll actually leave my phone at home, or I'll give it to the friend I'm out with. So I actually, like an alcoholic, you can't trust your willpower. Don't drink. It's like, that doesn't work. Don't check your phone. If it's an addiction, just telling yourself or yelling at somebody doesn't make it work.
Me and my friends, we play a game. We call it stacking. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah.
All right, so stacking. Has anyone else in here done this? All right, so if you're going for dinner tonight with a group of people, you should stack. I promise it does sound sexually deviant. I promise it's not that. It's actually concerning a phone. So what we all do is we'll all put our phones in a stack in the center of the table, and the first person to reach for their phone pays the bill. So it stops you from going for your phone, especially if there's a lot of you. So if you're leaving it at home and you're going for dinner, has that changed anything in terms of your friendship circle? Are they doing the same thing as you?
Yeah, we're all doing it. Or we'll all hand our phone one to the left. So you have because you know what happens when somebody goes to the toilet, you pull out your phone, because heavens forbid you should just sit for 5 minutes, you know? And we've all had the experience where somebody you're with, and there's just two of you walking down the street, and one pulls out the phone, and you feel stupid, so you pull out your phone. Now it's two people on the phone, and so you see what happens. So I have no problem being out with friends and saying, can you put your phone away? Because we're just at dinner. Just check it later when you go home. Now, there's always exceptions. It's not a draconian thing. Like, you just say, hey, there's one thing I'm waiting for. It's just really important. That's fine. But it's the fact that you see it in restaurants all the time. I sit next to people, and I see them just checking Instagram while they're at dinner. Like, unnecessary.
Maybe I play way too many games for my own good, but a game that we also play when we're at dinner, my friends and I, is to
Do you ever just eat dinner?
No, we just
play games?
We basically like to look at other people and laugh.
Yeah.
But we look for the uncomfortable couples that are sat in silence and try and work out what's gone wrong in their relationship due to their body language, right? This is a game this is a sense of humor that my friends and I have, right? So that's one of the games that we play, but now it's changed.
Here's one I play.
Go on.
Have you ever played the first date game?
Oh, to figure out who's on the first date. By show of applause, anybody in here on a first date? Yes!
You know how we could tell? Because you applauded.
That's hilarious. It's funny how only one of them clapped, though.
It's true. Yeah.
Someone's really embarrassed right now.
By show of hands, how many people are on a first date and it's going well? Oh!
Why did you do that? That was wrong. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
That was too mean.
So yeah, I love playing the first date game just based on body language, trying to guess who's on a first date.
Right.
And I was sitting next to a couple in a restaurant. It was so clear they were on a first date. I could hear the conversation. I could tell the body language. And then he pulls his phone out.
Oh my God.
And he was doing something, and then he puts it on the table, which is really bad. I'll show you. Who has a phone? Somebody check a phone.
I've got one. Mine's deep.
You actually brought it out?
I forgot. I just realized when my...
So here, let me show you there's a subconscious reaction to the phone. I'll show you. What if I were to sit here while I'm talking to Reggie holding my phone? I'm not checking it, it's not buzzing, it's not beeping, I'm not checking it, I'm simply holding it. Do you think that I feel that this is the most important thing to me right now? No, I'm simply holding it. In other words, when we put our phone on the table, it sends a subconscious message to the other people at the table that you are not the most important thing to me right now. Putting it upside down is not more polite.
We've all done it.
Okay, or this is very warm.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's bum heat.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But my favorite one is when it's face up and it rings and somebody leans over and goes, "I'm not going to get it." Oh, so benevolent, right? The point is when you put the phone on the table, it communicates subconsciously to somebody that they're not that important to you. So this chap is out on a first date and he puts the phone face up on the table.
Right.
I'm sitting there, I should have just eaten my sushi, but of course I'm obsessing with what's going on, and I'm praying she'll go to the bathroom. And then she goes to the bathroom. And I lean over and say, "Put your phone away." And he says, "What?" I said, and I gave him a little lecture about what the phone does. And I said, "Did you not notice when you pulled your phone out, she looked away? Did you not notice? And by the way, she hasn't pulled her phone out once. She's showing you unbelievable respect. Show her the same respect, and I promise you your date will go better." So he put it away.
See, the change that I've actually noticed is that those couples that sat in silence in the past while playing my weird and invasive game, they now are actually sat on their phones.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that or
Yeah,
been
of
around
course.
that?
And what we don't understand, that the human brain, if you think you're good at multitasking, and you can, because I hear this all the time from young people, he's like, "You don't understand because you're older." They say to me, "We're very good at multitasking because we grew up with the devices. The science is not on your side." Stanford University did a very successful study that basically demonstrated that there's no such thing as multitasking. All there is moving from task to task to task very, very quickly. In other words, you're not actually multitasking. You're just bouncing between things. And from a brain standpoint, it does many things that don't help. So for one, it takes about 20 minutes for our brains to engage in deep thought, focus, right? So you've had it where you've worked on a paper, you're writing something, you're working on something at work, and over the course of time, you find yourself really deeply... Now, every time there's an interruption, that process resets. So if you never allow for it to happen, you actually struggle to form deep thoughts and actually have big ideas. What's more, the studies show is that we get interrupted. Emails go ding, something goes buzz. We get interrupted on average every 4 minutes, right? And what's happened now, because we're so conditioned to being interrupted, we actually self-interrupt, meaning our email didn't ding, we just go over to email and hit refresh a few times. Our phone didn't buzz, I just lift it up and check. So we're actually interrupting ourselves without interruption. So what is happening is we actually struggle to form. So when we sit down for dinner with our friends, the intense, wonderful conversation doesn't just start. we sort of sit and look at the menu, and then somebody says something, and you start to engage. So when we interrupt that, and I've seen it happen so often, where people get on their phones for a few minutes and they put them down, then they sit in complete silence, just staring off into space. And because it's boring, somebody picks up the phone again. So even when they put it away, it's not way long enough to actually engage and enjoy.
Yeah.
We're getting the sign.
Oh, we're getting the sign. One last thing. I'm 33. The majority of my friends are around the same age group. And weirdly, they're all getting married and having kids now. And it's really strange, the conversations that we're having. One of which is actually how to manage your children in this technology age. How do you, when do you introduce digital technology to your children, etc. And it's sort of, for somebody like myself, who travels a lot and spends a lot of time on planes and in airports, you see parents who are trying to find a way to pacify their kids.
Sure.
And the new dummy, the new pacifier is an iPad. And I see it so much to the point where it actually worries me and concerns me. Where do you think that's going? And how much of a problem do you think something like that is? Because yes, children do need to be able to integrate with technology, well, use technology and understand it, but could it be dangerous? Could it be going in a negative direction?
Like anything else, it's about balance, right? And the problem is it's too often unbalanced. A very small child having their own device is really, it can be very dangerous, as I said before, with the alcohol and alcoholism. Under 15, having that kind of open access is potentially very, very dangerous. Even sort of the way children sort of learn object permanence, to use devices rather than real things, it can do damage. Child psychologists are talking about this kind of stuff as well. But I understand that there's, that parenting you can be exhausting and hard, and to give the kid the thing is wonderful. And I think that's fine now and then. But when it becomes too often, or when I went out for lunch, I went out for brunch in New York, and there was a table of parents, sort of 3 or 4 couples, and a table of kids. It was 6 or 7 kids sitting around the kids' table. And all the parents were talking and eating and joking, and every single child had a device at the table. And that is unbalanced. That's the point. But for young kids, 11, 12, 13, where you're considering buying them their own phone, the best examples I've heard are parents who are now sitting down with their kids and giving them a contract. So just like we have to sign contracts when we get our mobile phones, so too are they making their kids sign contracts. Literally, they will sit down and negotiate the terms. Yeah. And some of the terms will include, if you want your own phone, you're never allowed to use it in your bedroom. That includes as your alarm clock. Literally, the phone is not allowed in the bedroom. You're never allowed to have it at a dinner table. And if your friends come over, the phones will be taken away while you guys play. And you can agree to these terms. And some parents are coming up with more creative things as well. But I've heard those terms, and the kid has to sign the contract. And if they violate any of the terms, they lose their phone for a week. They've pre-agreed to the terms, those are the conditions, and then they can have a phone. So I think that's a healthier way of dealing with it.
Yeah, and hopefully that will stop the children that I've seen swiping picture frames confused as to why it's not coming alive. Right, we have a couple of microphones floating around. Wrote that one yesterday. We've got a couple of microphones floating around. We should probably get to the Q&A. Now, if you have a question, please raise your hand and make it very clearly shown. There we go. We can get the lights up a little. Thank you very much.
No questions, because I can't see
We do have some questions. Okay, she literally shouted here, so we are going to start with you. She actually doesn't need a mic. Can we get a microphone to this lady, please, with the neckerchief? Please, go for it. First of all, what's your name?
My name's Laurie. This is Eleanor, the pushy one.
Hi, pushy Eleanor.
Hi.
What's your question?
My question is, you spoke about a work ethic being instilled in millennials being almost a lost trait. They kind of assume that they can have anything without working hard for it.
Yeah.
So are there any lost traits that you would guard now, these millennials that are going to be parents to centennials? What are those traits that we can't lose track of? What are those traits that we don't want to lose sight of? Yes, we want to encourage them, but how do we balance that with our children?
So the technology thing is, to me, the most concerning one. I think the other stuff is sort of like there are people much better qualified to answer the question, i.e. people who have children. I appreciate the irony that I talk about parenting. The bigger concern for me is the technology, because it's become so pervasive. I think that this youngest generation, you know, who are born sort of around 2004-ish, Gen Z they're being called now, or Centennials, I hadn't heard that one before. That as Reggie was saying, like, you see too many young kids with either their own devices or always on the devices when they're out with their parents, as opposed to just being uncomfortable or learning what it's like to put up with something or learn how to talk at a dinner table, you know? That to me is the most concerning, only because I've been doing more research on it, and it's really, really scary. Just to share with you, these statistics are American statistics, but I have to believe there's something similar here. Guess which demographic has the highest rate increase of suicide?
Isn't it? Well, in the UK, it's young men.
So in the States, it's girls 10 to 15 years old. The number of girls
10 to 15?
10 to 15. The number of girls 10 to 15 years old who are killing themselves has tripled in the past 15 years. Tripled.
Wow.
And we know that shaming on the internet and internet bullying is absolutely a part of it. Feelings of inadequacy based on all of their friends is absolutely a part of it. And we know that girls spend 40% more time on social media than boys. These aren't causal relationships that are correlated, I understand. But I think, given the numbers, they're only going up. I think it's responsible for us to at least investigate this and intercede before the numbers become really, really scary. And by the way, they all looked happy on Instagram.
Yeah, everyone looks happy on Instagram, don't they? Okay, let's get another question. I'm going to go to you because I saw you first. Your hand was up quickest. Can we get a mic to this gentleman just over here?
Thank you. Hi, I'm David.
Hey, David.
So basically, I work for a tech company, and we like to believe that more than being customer obsessed, like many companies say, we're employee obsessed, and we spend a lot of time as leadership team or management team, whatever we want to call it, talking about how we can make our employees' life better at work. So do you feel that, especially in tech, but across all sectors, this revolution has started and people are actually paying more attention to, you know, what they can do better for their employees to create the right environment?
Yes and no. I'm glad the question is being asked, and I'm glad that people are concerned with it. Particularly in tech, though, I think it fires off very hard in the wrong direction. So a lot of tech companies think that looking after your people means free food, open space, flexible work hours, no permanent desks, you know, free laundry, and all of this stuff. And it's all very superficial. And even when you give people that, why aren't they staying, and why are they still feeling like stressed, right? So I think though those things are nice to haves, and if you get them, it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I think they're good. But I think what's more important is creating an environment where people feel that the company actually wants to help them and see them grow as individuals and as human beings. Where if they screw up, they're told, all right, try again. You know, where they feel like they can screw up, and someone will rush in to either support them or give them more training or let them just try again, solve their own problem. Where there's all kinds of classwork and coursework, like listening skills and effective confrontation, things that we struggle with. I mean, it's hard to say to your boss or to a colleague, you really hurt my feelings, or you screwed up. Giving feedback and getting feedback. It's one thing to demand it, it's another thing to have the skill to hear it. We all like positive feedback, but hearing negative feedback is sometimes hard to take. So I think those skills are desperately lacking in a lot of companies, and a lot of companies should be teaching those things and really working hard to create an environment where people feel like they belong and are completely devoted to each other more than anything else. And I think that's very much lacking in tech and other businesses. In other words, leadership training. They teach you how to do your job, they teach you how to code, they teach you how to use the software, but when they promote you, they don't teach you how to lead. So why would we expect to have good leaders if nobody's teaching us how to lead?
So true. Okay, you threw your hand up quite quickly right here in the center. It's quite an awkward place to get the mic, but let's try.
I haven't quite figured out these chairs yet.
Yeah, is your back hurting as well?
I just don't know if this, does it look weirder if I...
Yeah, it's just a weird student house IKEA number, but we'll deal with it.
I had these chairs in my first apartment.
Did you? There you go.
I had the white ones, though.
Do you have a mic?
Yes.
Oh.
Hi. Sorry.
You don't want me to talk about my first furniture?
I was actually pointing at a lady.
Oh.
That is a lady.
Was it me?
Hello.
Was it me?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so I've got a prepared question. Shall I bang it?
Oh, there you are. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so I'm a previous generation. So my kids are centennials, so they're coming of age now. They're born 1999 and 2001. I'm very grateful I didn't have a smartphone when they were very little. So what will you be saying about them in 5 or 10 years?
That they're wonderful people and well-adjusted and leaders amongst their peers. I don't really understand the question. I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Well, they're later than millennials. They've got smartphones. What do you think that generation will be like?
I suppose,
different or more of the
has
same?
there been much of a change, would you say, in terms of the way that people are parenting their children now versus millennial kids?
Not that I've seen. I think because until we label these things addictions, which they haven't been labeled yet in the West,
right.
We're not recognizing them as problems, and so we're not adjusting our behaviors. Interestingly, all the data that I have about the parenting strategies didn't come from child psychologists. It actually came from parents themselves. There's a good dearth of data of parents of millennials who look back and be like, well, yeah, I probably would have done that differently, which I think is funny. So the answer is from my work, I haven't seen too many changes. I think some of it's exaggerated. I actually think it's gone worse. And if we think about the ones who are coming of age, you think about the major events that are happening in our world as they come of age, so they're 12, 13, 14, I think they're living through things like Brexit and Trump and Marine Le Pen and sort of immigrants and these kinds of things. And I'm very interested how these attitudes will shape them. I think this young generation is going to become a very accepting generation. I mean, we already see one of the things that I absolutely love about millennials is they tend to be a pretty accepting generation, much better than older generations. Whether it's sexuality or gender identity, it's a big nothing. Like this younger generation is like, whatever you want to do, it's fine, it's cool. And I love that. It's really a big non-issue. And I think this younger generation is going to be even more accepting and inclusive of people who are not like them than previous generations. And I cannot wait for them to grow up.
Can we pass the microphone down? I'm so sorry. Do you mind passing the microphone down to this lady just in front of you, a few rows, and maybe we can get it to her? Because I actually pointed at her, and I feel really bad. So maybe we can make yourself known. Don't be shy. Go on, stand up. There we go. Pass it down. Okay, please, far away.
I found it really interesting what you said, that your why develops at quite a young age, and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of hear, maybe from both of you, your journey to your why. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Sure. You go first.
Oh, God. All right.
What is your why?
My why, I guess, is obviously the obvious stuff, such as, looking after your family, providing for the people that
it's only one thing.
But once you get all that stuff out of the way, I guess my why is to essentially be the example that I never had and to create conversation in a way that I never heard growing up. I guess that's my why.
That's nice.
And it developed over a long period of time. I spoke about growing up just over there, just on Liverpool Road at Mersey Estate. But when I was 8 years old, I went to the Anna Scher Theatre, which is now the Young Actors Theatre in Barnsbury Park, just over that way. And that sort of brought the world of drama to me and changed my life. And I think at that point, I realized quite quickly, the minute I had a platform, I needed to do something with it. And, I've gone from children's to entertainment to Saturday night to actually making films about subject matter I care about. And I feel that change is actually happening. So I guess my why is developed, and that's what my why is.
And that's why you enjoy your work.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So when you do that, you're happiest.
Yeah, I went to Central Foundation Boys School in Old Street Roundabout, and I gave a talk at Founders Day, and I gave a massive talk about passion. And I think at the core of my why really is the word passion, if I could boil it down and simplify and pretend that none of that was said. Basically, my why goes back to passion. Is passion a part of your why, and is it a driver for you at all?
Passion is a part of no one's why.
Interesting, okay.
Because passion is a result. Passion is like profit. Like if we engage in something that talks to who we are, we will be passionate. If we are forced to do something that doesn't talk to who we are, we will be stressed. And so everyone in the world is passionate. We're just not all passionate for the same things. So either by choice or by luck, if you find yourself doing something that talks to you, the result is you will feel passion and you will have passion for whatever it is you're doing. So I think the reason that passion, and this is to your credit, the reason passion is so dominant for you is you seem to have a sense of who you are and what your cause is, the way you described it, to have the conversations that you didn't have, or, you know.
I didn't hear, yeah.
You didn't hear, sorry. Because it's been so clear to you for a long time, and you seem to be very good at making decisions with that as a filter, with that in mind. You know, pointing your career in a direction. And I know, you know, you're doing these big things and your career's going like this, and you walk away from all of that to do things that are much smaller in scope because it speaks to you more. That is a very wide-based thing to do, which is to turn away the fame and the fortune in order to do something that speaks to you more, and you undoubtedly will have more passion for these projects than you would for the other ones for that reason.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't pay as well, so you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. But come on you.
But it feels good.
It
feels good.
Does feel good.
So,
just one more thing to add to that. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah, no.
I think...
Is that fair, by the way? Is that fair?
It is, yeah, it is. And the measure of that I've found is the conversations that I have on the street now. So it's gone from, oh, I really loved your suit last night on Saturday night on The Voice, to what you uncovered in that film about autism really spoke to my experience because I have a cousin who's autistic, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a conversation as opposed to a statement or a white van man going, oi, oi, good haircut. They now pull over and say, listen, I just want to talk to you about the film you made about Tourette's, and then it becomes a conversation.
And did you feel passion when somebody told you all about your suit, complimented you on your suit, your haircut?
Nah, it was just like, that's cheers.
Exactly.
Cheers, buddy. Yeah. Anyway, your why.
That's a credit to you. I think Reggie is a very good example of what a career looks like when you start with why. And the fact that he was willing to make the decision that a lot of people, especially in show business, do not make. Money and fame become very addictive and are fun. And to make a decision based on who you are and what you want to accomplish in the world, I think is an example for all of us, quite frankly.
That's the last time we're doing that. Your why. You've avoided it twice. And I know in the back of your head you're just going, oh, what is my your why, please.
So, like you, I think that the struggles we have, the struggles that we overcome when we're children, I think become our strengths as adults. So as a kid, I absolutely had ADD, but it was never diagnosed, thank goodness, because nobody ever treated it or attempted to treat it. It was just sort of me with my short attention span and unfocused and all these other things. And I was constantly told, if you just focus, you'd accomplish great things. But I still had a real problem, which is I had to get through school, meaning I actually had to like graduate. But I never did the reading because I couldn't read. I mean, I could read, technically I could read, but I could never get through the book without being distracted. I can't learn from reading. I'm a terrible learner if I have to read. And so I had to learn at a very young age that if I'm gonna get through class, I'm gonna have to A, get good at asking questions, B, I've gotta get good at listening, and C, I've gotta get good at going after class and talking to the teacher. And that's exactly what I did. Teachers loved me, and I would ask tons of questions, and they would stay after and explain things to me. I had to go to class, so when I got to university, I couldn't skip class and then just do the reading. I had to go to every class, and I had to have good teachers who were good at explaining, because if they couldn't explain, but I couldn't read, I had to learn. And so those listening skills and sort of, you know, getting good at sort of being nice to people, because why would you help me otherwise, I think have really helped me as an adult. Where sort of listening actively, and I don't mind being the fool, I don't mind saying I don't understand in a room where everybody's nodding their head yes, has really benefited me. But it all goes back from trying to get through school.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more, last question. Wow, you really, that hand went up super quick, and it's a very strong arm. Is that your question written down on paper? Oh, okay. I was going to say that. It's a big bit of paper.
Hiya. I just wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to young millennials on how to practice patience in the corporate environment? Especially when in a new job, you're 6 months in, you want to get to the top of that mountain. How do we sit out the grind?
It's one way to end it.
So, so the bad news is there's no switch. Like, I can't give you an answer that just works. Like, whatever I tell you is gonna take a little time. It's like if you say to me, how do I lose weight? I'm like, well, you're gonna have to eat healthy and exercise, but you won't see the benefits tomorrow. Like, if you go to the gym, tomorrow you will see nothing. In fact, you'll be in pain, right? So empirically, you'll be like, this isn't working, okay, unless you stick with it. And it's the same kind of mentality, which is some of these things, you have to stick with it, and not everybody will see or feel the impact immediately. It'll happen at different times for different people, but these things work, right? It's just like exercise. And the hardest part is, like exercise, is it may actually hurt in the short run, right? So one of the big things is did you pick the right place to work? Meaning not from the, we're going to pay you a lot and give you a job, but do you like the people? And we want to make decisions where we work, not based on how much they pay us and not based on what they're going to ask us to do, but who we're going to be working for. Like, do I want to work for these people? Will this person be my mentor? Will this person help me grow? Will I feel like I belong here? It's way more important, especially when we're junior, to find, because we don't know anything when we're junior. I mean, we're idiots. We just think we know a lot, right? We've all been there. The most important thing is to find a mentor. Find somebody you really want to work with, even if they pay you a little less, because you will grow much more quickly, okay? That's number one. Number two, you have to be the leader you wish you had. In other words, you can't make it a selfish pursuit. You know, how can I find the job that I love? How can I overcome all the challenges? How can I learn grit, right? But rather, how can you help someone that you work with, who you have a decent friendship with, someone you like, someone you think could one day actually be a decent leader? How do you help them learn grit? How do you help them learn patience? In other words, how can you become the supportive leader for someone else to grow, and something remarkable will happen. As you practice that skill set, not only will those skills improve, but they will do them back for you. You don't do it to receive, you commit to actually seeing someone grow and, believe it or not, helping someone solve the problems that you're suffering, helping someone else solve the problems that you're suffering with, actually is the thing that helps you solve your problem. Also, practice putting your phone in your desk. I can always tell the generations. I walk through an office and I can tell people's generation, because older generations are typing and their phones are over here. Younger generations are typing and their phone is right here. So it's type, look down, type, look down, type, look down, type, look down. No. So you want to wean yourself off of it, right? Put your phone in your bag. Treat it like smoking. Like, you can send as many texts as you want. You can make as many calls as you want outside, right? Just treat it like you can take breaks. You can set a little pinger for an hour on your computer. But every hour you can stop and take a break and check. But get rid of the addiction. Like, really start treating yourself as an addict. Never bring it to a conference room ever. Never take it out when you go out for lunch with your friends, your colleagues. Just don't even bring it. And you'll start to find that the relationships that you'll build and your ability to stick through something will actually get easier. And at the risk of belaboring the point, I don't believe that the courage to stick something out is an internal fortitude. You don't dig down deep to find the courage, right? It's when you have the feeling that someone has your back, a friend, a colleague, a boss, whoever, that you feel that someone's got your back. So a world-famous trapeze artist will not try a brand new death-defying act without having a net there for the first time, right? So you need somebody who is that net. You need somebody who makes you feel like you could try something, and if something goes horribly wrong or you screw it up, they'll go, I'm here, I got you, don't worry, even if it goes wrong, I'm still here. Right? You need that person, because when we have that person, you'll be amazed how much courage you have.
Thank you very much for your question. I've been given the nod, which means we are pretty much out of time. So please, can we have a round of applause one more time for the amazing sons? Thank you. Thank you. Before you guys jump up and make your way towards that neon bar sign, there's actually a signing that's happening, so you can grab hold of 1, 2, if not all 3 of Simon's existing books and get them signed and have maybe a personal message if you're nice. That's all taking place, I think, in that direction. Is that right? That direction. Sorry. So that's all happening over there. So if you'd like a book and you'd like to meet Simon and you'd like to get a signed copy, head in that direction. For now, from us and to everyone on Facebook, thank you. And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Good night. That's great.
That was
I really
fabulous.
enjoyed that, man.
That was really fantastic.
Thank you so much.